Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Inland Empire Winter Regional Conversation of 2021. I want to greet all of you from the Arts for IE and Arts Connection, Music Changing Lives, Riverside Arts Connection, and also the Californians for the Arts. Thank you for joining us on this regional conversation about the importance of art, and I'm glad to see all of you with us today. Just to be respectful to time, we have a lot on the menu, so we're going to be handing it over to our colleague, Matt, now from Californians from the Arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Josiah, and welcome everyone. These conversations in the regions are some of our favorite things as staff, to really get to know everyone and see what's going on the ground level. So thank you so much for being here. Your voice is so important to us as we guide strategy on the statewide level. We want to make sure that as many voices are represented. So thank you for taking the time to be here today. We'll go over the agenda and see what we'll be talking about. We'll have a update from the Executive Director of Californians for the Arts, Julie Baker. We'll talk about our Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month and some of the legislative requests and some things that we're focused on. And we'll give you an update on things that are going. So I want to pass the mic over to Patrick and give a moment of respect to our friend and arts hero, Larry Baza.
Thank you, Matt. For those of you who don't know, Larry Baza was the chair of the California Arts Council. We recently lost him to COVID. Larry was one of those genuinely special people who was a focal point of the arts, not only in San Diego, where he was from, but throughout the state of California and the region. I had the good fortune of being able to share a cab with him at one point. And I feel personally the loss of a genuinely warm, kind, giving person and a true leader in our arts community.
Thank you, Patrick. And we'll proceed to the next slide. We'll be dedicating our advocacy efforts this year to Larry moving forward. And if you have a favorite memory about Larry, please feel free to put it in the chat. He was just always so welcoming and made everyone he's talked to feel important. So we miss him and think about him still. Moving to this agenda, you'll see this is what we'll generally talk about today. Do a little state update. We'll move it to a local update, and then we will be doing polls and questions throughout the meeting so we can get some insight from you. And then the next slide, we'll just talk a little bit about making sure that there's a raise hand function in the bottom right-hand corner of your Zoom slide. So raise your hand if you'd like to speak, or you can just put a message in the chat, and we're happy to be sure that we'll circle back around to you for that. We will be putting our email address, Julie Baker, the Executive Director, and other staff members. We're always accessible to ask your question, answer your questions and things like that, even outside of this meeting. And the last thing, and if you could please in the chat put your land acknowledgement of the indigenous land where you're residing, so we can give respect to what has made it possible for us to stand where we are at today. And with this, I'd like to pass it over to our leader and instigator, Julie Baker, the Executive Director of Californians for the Arts.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you to our hosts, Jenny, Patrick, and Josiah, who are also board members of Californians for the Arts and California Arts Advocates. You're extremely well represented in statewide advocacy for the arts. My name is Julie Baker. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm coming from the land of the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan in Nevada County, California. I wanted to give a couple of quick updates, and then I was going to do a little bit of a presentation on our big activity in April, which is Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. And then I know Jenny, I think, will share some local updates. And then we really want to engage in a conversation where you can ask us questions. You can uplift some of the things that are specific to your region that you want to make sure that we as your state advocates understand and know. So when we're representing you both in advocacy and direct lobbying, that we're very clear on all the different elements of what goes on in terms of the impact as well as the needs of our sector going forward. So just a couple of quick updates before I get into my slideshow. We, maybe some of you have already applied, and I hope you have, but one of the successful advocacy moments this recently has been that we lobbied the administration and the legislature to create funding specifically for arts and culture organizations. And so as part of the California Relief Grant Program, which was passed about a month or so ago, of over $2 billion in small business relief grants, we were able to get $50 million only for arts and cultural institutions in round 4 of the California Relief Grant Program. There's no cap on your revenue in terms of every other round the cap was $2.5 million. This one, there is no cap. And you can apply for grants between $5,000 and $25,000 based on your annual revenue. The application itself takes about less than half an hour. And I want to clear up something that has been a little confusing for people. Some people thought that they had to have their 990s completed by the time they apply. That is not correct. You can still apply. And then if you get selected to go to the next round where you will have documentation verification, that's when you will need to upload your documents, but you have time to do that. And I can assure you Lendistry, which is the third party that was hired by the state to manage the California Relief Grant Program, will work with you to make sure that those documents are uploaded correctly. So please, one of the things that's really important for us in terms of our continued advocacy is that people apply for this grant. If it is undersubscribed and we cannot get rid of $50 million from the state to arts and cultural institutions, it makes our job harder to go back and say we need more money. And clearly, $25,000 grants at the max are not going to make or break any organization's bottom line, but we need to show the demand there. So thank you, Carol. That's great. I'm glad or whoever said that, that's great. If it is, that's terrific. And so please apply, and we'll, I think Jade Alicia is probably putting the link in the chat right now. The other thing I wanted to mention was reopening guidelines for live events and for performing arts specifically. Starting April 1st, the state has released new guidance. We do not yet have the guidelines. What I can tell you though, is that those are all for outdoor performances as of right now. And we have a page on our website that is dedicated to reopening guidelines, which will keep up to date with information. I also wanted to let you know that Californians for the Arts is at the table with a small group of industry experts with the governor's Department of Business, run by Dee Dee Myers, as well as the California Department of Public Health. We have been asked to review guidelines, to give our input before they were released to the public. So that is not, I can't share anything more because they've asked us to keep it confidential, but I can assure you that they are listening to the industry experts. They are recognizing the specific needs of our very diverse ecosystem in terms of live events and performing arts. And they are doing their best to manage both public health and safety, the need for us to get back to business and to get our artists and our institutions back online, not literally online, but in person. So that's the kind of reopening guideline stuff. Now I'm going to give you quick, I want to get through here. All of a sudden what I want to share isn't there. There it is. Okay, I'm going to quickly share some stuff around Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, which is something that is every April here in the state of California. And we're going to make it really easy for you, hopefully, to engage, to share, and to raise your voice for the arts. Our theme this year is that the arts are an essential industry, which I think, those of us in the arts have been saying that for decades. I think now in this last year, what has happened is that as people have missed the arts, particularly the live events, many of you have pivoted to do what you can to continue to provide critical services to your constituents and your members, but we certainly haven't been able to do what we normally do in terms of gathering. And so, I think people have recognized now that the arts are an essential industry, and that we are going not just from one campaign here and there to try and raise money, but really we've created a movement around this, and it's a very exciting time. We have some specific things that happened during the month of April that we'll go into here as well. So what is the month of April? And we're going to launch a poll here. I'm going to just move it over so it doesn't get into my space where I'm trying to do the presentation. So the month of April is our time to celebrate, recognize, and advocate for the significant impact our industry makes in California. We have very specific hashtags, and all of this is available on our website for you to download. We're just uploading the most recent, so we'll give you a second. We'll follow up and send it to you so that you have all of the most recent data. And you'll see our hashtags that we ask you to share as well. And this was a resolution that in 2019 was declared by the California Senate with the Assembly to be every April in California. It's really our opportunity to make sure that legislators, all of our elected officials, local, state, and federal, are aware of our economic and social impact throughout California. And there's many, many ways that you can engage. And so you'll see some of the graphics we've created this year. Again, those are all for you to download. What is advocacy? How can you become an advocate? And you may already be one. Advocacy is the act of speaking on the behalf of or in support of another person, place, or thing. Anyone and everyone can be an advocate. It is the #1 way we can advance social change that affects the people we serve. So here's some things we want you to keep a hold of in terms of dates. Advocacy Week is April 19 through 23. Before COVID, we did this in person at the Capitol. This year, we'll continue to do things virtually. If you sign up before March, I believe it's 29, we will actually assign you to a team with other people in your region and or a captain as well. And so that you'll be able to access the materials and we'll actually set up the meetings for you. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. If that's not something you want to do or you can't make the decision by then, we also ask you to engage in our letter writing campaign the week of April 19th to 23. We'll make it very simple for you. It'll take less than 5 minutes. And we have a very big goal this year of getting to 10,000 letters submitted in order for the May revise. This is a very important time in terms of the budget for California. So when we're asking the legislature and the administration to prioritize the arts, the reason why we do Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month in April is so that it's really top of mind and it's prioritized. We're also doing a convening on April 27th. We're really excited for the topics that will be raised there. You saw in our sort of bullhorn image some of the things that we will be focusing on. Many of folks like Josiah will be participating and leading a panel about raising youth voices. And we'll be discussing a lot about anti-racism in the arts and racial equity. We'll be talking about how you can engage as an effective advocate, and you'll meet inspiring advocates from really engaged this last year. And we'll have more information on that to come very, very soon. Here's how you can support Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things. One is that everything that we do is free. We want to make our programs as accessible for everyone as possible. So there is no payment or charge to participate in any of our programs. So the easy way to do would be to take this logo, which you can download here on the right, a proud supporter of Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, post it on all of your materials, your website, your social media posts, if you do blogs, if you're having events, add it to your event, and so on. Again, to print it in online materials. You can organize a virtual event in your community, again, with the wrap of it being part of Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. Maybe you want to engage in a conversation with your local elected officials around the impact of arts and really give them the opportunity to speak to it and talk about your impact. If you do a newsletter, e-blast, please include that as well. And then one of the things I wanted to highlight that we saw in very big, in a big success in terms of advocacy at the federal level. Many of you have heard and are maybe waiting for the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant, what was formerly the Save Our Stages Act. That was created by a push by independent music venues primarily. That's where it started. They were shut down and didn't see a future for themselves. And so they started to organize. And one of the things that they did was they shared their email lists. As you can imagine, people who go to music centers and music venues, independent music venues, are fans and they want to see those venues continue. Part of the success of getting to a $16.5 billion federal program for the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant was the amount of grassroots advocacy that occurred and being able to touch those types of people and asking them to send in letters. So hundreds of thousands of letters were sent in support of Save Our Stages. I can assure you, this is why it got bipartisan support and why it passed and got prioritized over other things. So in our actions, we are asking that you not only ask your board or yourself to send our templated letter, but to send it to your full email list. If all the organizations, over 11,000 arts organizations and venues and everybody else in museums and in California sent it out to their e-list, you can imagine how many letters the state will receive in support of our asks, which I will get to in a second. And again, you can post all of this on your social media as well. You can also write an op-ed. We've got ways and toolkits as well as talking points for an op-ed. You can initiate a proclamation in your local city or county, which we also have templates for. We will have specific talking points and graphics for every week, which we start actually in 4 days next week. So this is part of it, which is our narrative around artists or second responders. The next week, we will talk about the importance of arts bring belonging and healing. And again, these are sample talking points that you can use and share in your social media platforms or in your newsletters and so on. The third talking point is around the arts are essential. And again, there's the talking points there, that jobs and economic recovery of California is dependent upon the creative industries, and we'll continue to, these are just some samples. We'll continue to add more and more and more data points as we go through the month as well. And finally, and not finally, but there must be racial equity in the arts as well. So we'll be highlighting that as one of our focuses for the month, and also the importance of empowering youth voices and inspiring and giving them a sense of a future in terms of career and engagement, and giving them a platform to raise their own voices. I want to quickly go into what are our specific legislative requests this year. So right now we have both Senator Allen and Assemblymember Sharon Quirk-Silva have both introduced budget letters, request letters, to increase the funding for the State Arts Agency, the California Arts Council, from $26 million in funding to $40 million in funding. That is essentially the equivalent of $1 per capita per person. If we can get this passed, this would be the largest one-time increase in funding for the California Arts Council. And we know that if there's ever a time that we need more funding for the arts and distributed equitably as possible from their grant purpose cycles, we would say that it is now. We've also been working and sponsoring a bill with Senator Allen. If you don't know Senator Allen, he's the chairman of the Joint Committee of the Arts in the state legislature for the Creative Workforce Act of 2021. And this is our version of the WPA for the 21st century, as well as the CETA, the Comprehensive Employment Training Act version as well. So it's both a jobs creation as well as a jobs training in the arts and the creative industries act. And so we're excited to have that. And really the language talks about artists are essential workers. And that's something we're really trying to quote unquote socialize and establish. Governor Newsom also introduced a California Creative Corps pilot program in his 21-22 budget proposal. And we are definitely in support of that. And it's a great complement to the Creative Workforce Act, which would then be an ongoing program, not just a pilot. Senator Rubio is working on some exemptions to AB 5 for grassroots community-based organizations. We are working on that bill very closely with the author's office and other people. We are not yet, it's still in formation, so we're working on the exact language, but stay tuned for that. There's also a bill from Assemblymember Mark Levine, AB 1227, that we're also following and bringing our expertise onto the table as we've been working on AB 5 for 3 years now. And there's also a recent bill, AB 247 from Assemblymember Ramos for COVID-19 emergency small business nonprofit organizations immunity from civil liability. So that would be for, I think it's organizations and businesses with under 100 employees that and that you would not be held liable if you follow all the protocols and still somebody gets COVID. The very exciting thing that I don't yet have details on, though, is that one of the things that you should all be aware of, both locally and at the state level, is actually a tremendous amount of money coming into California. Not only did California actually have a budget surplus unexpected, they anticipated a deficit. We're also receiving from the American Rescue Plan, just signed by President Biden, $26 billion in additional funding just to the state, as well as an estimated $16 billion to individual cities and counties in California. What that means is that, and they call out nonprofits and disproportionately impacted industries, travel, tourism, hospitality in the ARP Act. So this is an opportunity for us within our industry that has been disproportionately impacted. We have all the data to share that, as well as significantly systemically under capitalized over decades of a lack of funding. This is the time to make our big ask. So we are going at the state level, and I don't have the details yet, but we are building coalition with a number of other lobbying organizations that represent the creative industries to make a significant ask of the federal stimulus funds. So please stay tuned for that. We will have that in time for Advocacy Week, and that is when we really need to get those 10,000 letters in, because I can assure you everybody's going to come to the table and say, we would like some of that money, and we want to make sure that our voices are heard and recognized. So that's really exciting, and I hope you'll stay tuned for that. And then there's other things along the lines of what we've learned during the pandemic is how our ecosystem for arts workers, artists, arts administrators often are self-employed. 3.5 times more likely than any other workforce. And so we want to make sure that we continue the programs that we saw in federal relief, pandemic unemployment assistance, and so on. We want to look at ways, how can we create a better infrastructure for artists and creative workers to have a living wage, to be able to afford to live in California, to have access to housing. We are finding that the artists and creative workers are our vulnerable workforce. They are often the people who are facing housing and food insecurity. And so we need to make sure that we are creating systems to support that sector, because they're so important. And I know I saw Pat Wayne here as well, and we're waiting on Create California's specific legislative requests, but I can tell you, we always include the value and importance of the essential nature of having arts education offered in all of our schools. So what can you do right now? Sign up to be a delegate for Advocacy Week. Download our media toolkit. Just give us a couple hours. We just want to update it real quick. Sign up for the convening sessions. It's free. It's going to be through Zoom. We're going to use the easiest platform everybody knows already, but you have to sign up for each session. So you'll take a look at those. And again, as I said, all our programs are free, but you must register. But become a member if you can afford to do so. It really does help us to keep our programs free. So we appreciate your support. And you can here's where you can follow us on all the different platforms. So that's it. So thanks so much for your time, and happy to answer any questions, or I maybe hand it off back to Matt to see what's next on the agenda.
Thanks, Julie. Great to get all the updates. The updates continue always. We had a question from Marcia in the chat that I wanted to uplift her voice. In response to this California relief grant, it looks as if they received funds in the first round, but if there's monies left over, is it possible that they could reapply and get more?
Sadly, no. If you've applied and received funds, great, congratulations. I'm happy to hear that you did, but you cannot reapply. That's just how they determine the program. They want to make sure it gets to as many people as possible, and that was in the legislation, so there's nothing we can do to change it.
Thank you. And just real quick, we had Susan Parker is in the audience with us. She may have to hop on to another different meeting. Just wanted to have an opportunity she wanted to introduce herself. Susan, are you around? All right. Well, you can always put
there we
that
go.
in the
Hi.
chat. Are you there?
Hi.
Heather? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I'm from Riverside and I represent over 2,000 local musicians and those in music with the Inland Empire Musicians Hall of Fame. We lost our founder, Greg Eckler, in November, but me and Julian Morgan are going to get ourselves incorporated and established as soon as we can as a nonprofit, you know, because of him leaving. So because everybody in our group are over 50, you know, and we've lost a lot last year and even more so this year. So, you know, we don't have time to mess around anymore, but our Facebook group and fan page is where we're, you know, getting everybody's reconnection all, but we got to do more than that this year. And we're going to hopefully get that going with your guys' help. And I look forward to meeting all you when all this is over.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind maybe putting your email address or something in the
Sure.
chat, then we could always have everyone reach back out. And please, as a reminder, to sign up for Advocacy Week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Also, one more thing. Yeah, I would like to invite everybody to my group on Facebook to see all the history we're saving and all the photos and stuff. You'll be amazed. And I'll send you guys that link too.
Thank you. Well, now we'd like to pass it to Patrick, who will help kind of facilitate the local update with some of the great leaders you have representing your region. Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, thank you so much, Matt. Jenny Kane and I from Arts Connection are actually going to share this little bit. We have had the opportunity to receive some additional funding. We both did a round of COVID relief grants that were specifically also geared for organizations that serve people of color. And because of the Inland Empire Community Foundation, we're going to be able to offer another round of that funding. Jenny, maybe you could explain a little bit more about what to look out for.
Well, I wanted to also just add one more point to that is I truly believe that the nod of confidence and from the Community Foundation to be able to do this came through the work of coming together through Arts for IE and having all these meetings and just the show of solidarity that these meetings have kind of presented to the larger region. And so they reached out and said, hey, we have the COVID Resilience Fund and we'd like to support arts organizations more directly. And so they're you know, providing that funding through us to be able to re-grant. Patrick and I are going to get together and figure out a really easy application to be able to make sure that goes to the organizations most in need. And so look for that really, really soon. We don't have the final details yet on it because I think we even just got it like last week. So this is very, very new and we're really excited about it. Can I keep going into the next thing, Patrick, or did you want to add to that?
Now, just to add one thing to that, to piggyback on what you just said, it's because of all of you guys here and the way that we've been getting together. Truly, that has had an impact on this and made it possible. So we're grateful to you for coming together each month or every other month whenever we've been able to get together in this difficult time. So our collective voices have made a difference. Jenny, go ahead.
Yeah. And the current snapshot. Okay, so yeah, this actually goes really nicely with what I was going to say next, which is I don't even remember when it was last year, but we did a survey with all of you. Everything is like blurred together. And a few of you took part in our follow-up focus groups a couple of weeks ago. the group kind of helping us with the analysis of that is finishing up. And so we will actually kind of following up on April's month of state advocacy. We're going to be doing our regional work a couple of weeks later. So May 14th will be the IE Regional Arts Summit. Well, we'll actually be able to release for the first time ever an arts report for our region. And that is also as a result of all of your guys' help and just helping us push that out, responding to them, showing up to meetings, even if they're last minute. And I can't say thank you enough, because through all of this, through the last year, I think this particular group and the energy from it has inspired me to keep going, you know, working with Patrick, Josiah, Vanessa, like it's connected us to larger things happening in the region that I think is really bringing us more opportunities to collaborate across sectors in a way that we kind of always talked about trying to do, but now we're really at the verge of like really being able to do that and push that into the next phase. So please show up to both. You're going to learn a lot from the Arts, Culture, and Creativity Advocacy Week, as well as at the summit, and then bring that to the local region, you know, a couple weeks later. And thank you again for, you know, inspiring us to keep doing this.
Yeah, and we do encourage you to please do get involved with these events, because advocacy is not just something that you can apply on a statewide level, on a national level. These are skills that you will be able to turn around and use at the local level, not just with your elected officials, although that's extremely important, but being able to speak better on behalf of yourselves, your organizations, what it is that you do. This can help in terms of seeking out sponsorships, in terms of building your audiences. There will be a lot of valuable information to come. So yes, please do sign up for this. It's free. It's a great opportunity also to get to know other people on a statewide level. And that sort of networking absolutely helps a lot.
I think a lot of you have some success stories from the last year, and also some challenges, but I think really taking an opportunity to reflect on those stories and bringing them to the advocacy calls will be really, really helpful. So just thinking about that, you know, some of you on the call, I know specifically, I've had, you know, deep learning and some major successes, even despite the challenges right now. So those are the kinds of stories we want to lift up too. One other local update from me, from San Bernardino specifically, is that we are moving forward with a county public art policy for the first time, that will be organizing a subcommittee from the community to kind of help us move that forward. So if that's something that you're interested in, just put that on your radar. It will be to help sort of guide how art shows up in county spaces, county buildings, and then hopefully moving forward to how they can support art as in the broader landscape. So that's kind of where we're started. But and then the county actually did release a resolution in support of Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month last year. We didn't get to present it because of COVID, but I will be sharing that with all of you. It's a really cool, you know, one of those printed resolutions, and I'd love for all of you in the county to share that out when you send newsletters, to just remind people that the county is making small changes in support of us as well.
Julie mentioned briefly the idea of becoming a member of Californians for the Arts, or California Arts Advocates. I would like to underscore that and just say how important it is. Serving on the board, as Jenny and Josiah and I do for the organizations, we get to see firsthand what it is that Julie does and what the organizations have the possibility of doing at the statewide and federal levels. And these come back directly to all of you. These come back and impact your communities. So please do, if you can afford it, and it's not that much, become members of these organizations.
Patrick, thank you. And I just want to always say it is never, ever Julie alone. Julie is surrounded by an amazing team of people like Matt and Jade, Alicia, and others that have joined us on temporary basis as we, the workload has only increased this year exponentially to be able to serve the needs of the field in terms of all the different levels of advocacy and lobbying that we need to do. It is really critically important that you show up. And one of the things Pat Wayne, who's here from Create California, just put in the chat, and I think this is really important. We often hear, particularly from areas like Inland Empire, that they don't feel like they're being represented in terms of access to funding and opportunities. And I can tell you that part of the way that that can be changed is for you to show up and let your legislators know how critically important it is to receive that funding or those resources or the technical assistance and so on. So this does not happen in a vacuum. This happens because you show up. And so I know there are times when you say, really, you want me to do one more thing? I already have so much on my plate to do what I do in terms of my programs and my organization or my practice. But what I want to say is that our job at Californians for the Arts in particular, is the nonprofit that we have there, is to really make it as easy as possible for you to engage in advocacy. And I know Create California does that as well. We model a lot of what we've learned a lot from Create ourselves in terms of creating awesome toolkits, and we all work together and share our resources to really do it as seamlessly as possible for the field. So, it sounds like I'm making a little bit of a plea, and I am, because it can't just be one person or 5 people alone that makes this successful. It really is all of us combined that can really change things. And I really want to underscore how much money there is right now. It seems really strange to be talking about how much money there is, but there is, and they're calling it a once in a generation opportunity in the legislature. So we don't want to let this opportunity go by and not have it be there for our industry that has always been at the end of the line. We can change that this year if you guys engage and we really activate. And I think we have this incredible opportunity. So I want to give on a chance for people to ask questions. Do you have specific things you want to ask me about, or any of us about, in terms of local issues, or some of the stuff I mentioned in the presentation? I know reopening guidelines has been an issue for people. When are they coming? That sort of thing. So please, now's the time to ask away.
And I'd also love to hear from Josiah to, as we sort of think about those questions, to see the great stuff you're doing all over that whole region in Inland Empire.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. And again, I just want to second what my colleagues, Patrick and Jenny, have said. The arts is moving forward here in the Inland Empire because of our efforts. And I truly want to thank them for their leadership. When I came to them at the beginning of a pandemic, they had the world on top of their shoulders. And I put this idea of unifying and doing a dual county mission with this Arts for IE concept, and they gladly took on board the efforts. And it's been a labor of love. And so I just want to thank you all that have joined us, and just excited about what we've accomplished in this last year. And to talk about some of the updates, we currently have our Spread Paint Not Hate campaign that has been accepted in the city of Redlands, where we'll be painting 3 basketball courts. We have murals that will be going out in both of those, in 2 parks in that community. So we'll have a call to action for all artists to come out and help paint by numbers. We have our virtual Changing Lives showcase coming up again here in the summer for San Bernardino County now, where kids will be able to compete to see who's the best at music and art. And then our 23rd anniversary is coming up April 18th. So please save the date. We're going to be planting milkweed plants and creating a butterfly farm here in San Bernardino at our new location, and painting rocks and things like that with the children. It'll be a social distance event, but our first outdoor kind of back to arts reconvening and reopening. Also, April 5th, we are scheduled to reopen our community center in Redlands. So we're gearing up for that, to where we'll be able to start offering music and art classes to kids again. We're so thankful for that. We're scaled down to 10%. The city has offered us to open up at. And so all the campaigning that I've learned from Californians for the Arts, I thank you, because I am applying pressure full throttle now. We also have on June 10th, a 1-hour showcase that's coming up with California Cal Endowment, where we are looking for artists, musicians, and DJs to get involved. We're going to be highlighting 14 different cities for 10 years of building healthy communities with California Endowment. And we'd love for you guys to participate. So that is June 10th. And then April, and get me right if I'm not wrong, Matt, I think it's 27th, or we'll be doing the youth convene, yes, with the Californians for the Arts. And I'm gracious that you guys have allowed us to pick 2 students that will represent San Bernardino and Riverside County to host and talk with other youth around California about what they need and what they want to become strong, powerful advocates, and let their voices be heard as well. So again, I just thank you all, because your leadership and your commitment is moving our region forward. Have a beautiful day. Oh, one last thing, my board member will kill me if I don't say this. We have a food distribution where we distribute food every Wednesday and clothing every Thursday. We've distributed over 150 tons of food last year and are scheduled to double that this year. So if you know people involved that need food or clothing, please have them follow us at Music Changing Lives. And everything is free. They don't have to register. They just simply have to show up and be blessed. I thank you all again, and I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Josiah. Just so inspiring to see the great work that's going on. I will invite everyone to raise your hand if you have a specific question or something you'd like to share with the group. While you sort of think about that or put that in the chat, I noticed in our poll that 71% of the people here entered into a new collaboration during COVID. And I think something that Jenny was sharing about sharing positive stories with your electives and giving them those updates. I'm just curious if anyone would mind sharing a new collaboration that came out in response to the pandemic.
Well, I would like to share.
Thank you, Jorge.
I'm inspired by Josiah, because Josiah, he's amazing, and the whole team at Music Changing Lives, they're very inspirational. So they've inspired me to go out and help them and support. So I've been helping with the food distribution, and again, I see the commitment from everybody, and what Music Changing Lives is doing is amazing, and I love seeing how they're connecting with people. And so for me, being here in San Bernardino, it's really, really inspiring, because there's so many connections that are being made. There's a really healthy community that's building up here in San Bernardino, and Josiah and the Music Changing Lives team is a part of that. Jenny is, she's a part of that as well. So a little bit of background, I'm here at the Garcia Center for the Arts. And so Jenny of Arts Connection, they have an office here at the Garcia Center. And so there's a lot of connections being made. And so for me, it's just really moving and seeing all of that. And again, during the pandemic, we've had to kind of re-envision kind of what we do. And part of that has been going outside, like being outside. And so we're creating green spaces. So here at the Garcia Center, we've been connecting with another organization called Huerta del Valle, and they create community gardens in the Inland Empire. And so helping organize murals at their community gardens, helping and start artwork at their community gardens. And then even exploring that here at the Garcia Center as well, creating, again, more green spaces. Again, because we want to try to limit being indoors during this pandemic. And so really just pushing being more outdoors.
Thank you. That's wonderful work, that collaborating, not just about creating art, but intersecting with other industries. That's wonderful stuff. Thank you for sharing. Want to lift up Vanessa's voice in the chat that save the date for the State of the Art Summit on May 14th. And I see we have a couple of hand raises. We'll go to Marcia and then go to Pat after that, please.
Oh, thank you. My organization is up in the Joshua Tree area. So we're up here in the high desert and we've got a lot of space. A couple that live in Yucca Valley have 10 acres and she is an arts advocate. She originally came from Indio and her husband is a classically trained violinist. And when everything started to get shut down last spring, we're kind of culturally challenged when it comes to performances and music anyway. So what she and her husband did on their 10 acres is they built a stage and they started inviting musicians to play in this outdoor venue. But the catch is it's a drive-in. So the artists perform on a stage and the audience it's like a drive-in movie, only it's music and performance, and it's really exciting and it's really taken off. So my organization has been helping Jacqueline and Jeremy get some grant money to help pay for local musicians and Inland Empire musicians, and even one grant, I think from CAC, will allow them, if they get it, to bring in a musician from like Los Angeles, and it will have an educational component. So it was really, a collaboration born out of the pandemic. So it's one of those silver linings in a big gray cloud. Thank you.
That makes me happy to hear that that's happening. Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Pat?
So some of you might know that as part of our adaptation plan, we are merging with the California Alliance for Arts Education. So two statewide entities that both were working hard from different directions on arts education issues in the state. We're coming together under the name Create California. So the Alliance's name will sunset, and just kind of bringing together the best of both. And I will say, to Julie's point, our funders are lining up. We just, over the next 3 years, the Hewlett Foundation has awarded us about 1.3 million. So we are going on hyperdrive in terms of education systems change. And I'm excited to bring more of that to you. I will be semi-retiring and Tom DeCaney will be he's currently executive director of the Alliance. He will be taking over, but I'm a resident of Riverside County. I am like totally committed to this area. And I plan to stay an active member of Californians for the Arts. Can't recommend Advocacy Day highly enough. That's where I met Jenny for the first time. And we had a great time, Jenny, running around. Of course, we were running around the halls physically, making our evil plans as we read up on each of the legislators we were going to go talk to and who was going to say what. So it's not scary. It's a lot of fun. Do it.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for your work. And I remember you can meet people at different regions. Pat and I shared a refreshment after the event 2 years ago. I think that's where we met. Do you remember that? So please join. We're making sure all the team, Julie Baker, you're just making sure that all of our sessions incorporate some sort of conversational element so that even though we will be virtual this year, to make sure that you'll have an opportunity to network with folks across the state. So thank you, Pat and Marcia.
To hear one of the things that we're trying to ascertain in terms of our advocacy is where are the gaps? Who's not being served currently in terms of access to both funding and resources? Does anyone have any input they'd like to share? In other words, we're not getting the funding because of X, Y, and Z, or we're not, we need to transition to having a virtual model, and we need tools to do that. Or we've been shut down for this long, and even if we reopen, we know it won't be at full capacity. We need gap funding for that. Give us some ideas if you could, because I have all sorts of thoughts on how to present this and in our big ask and so on, but it's helpful for us to also really clearly understand who is not getting access to funding right now. Or maybe you're all doing great. And that's wonderful. And that's due to the work of people like.
I'll share. So we're talking right now, this is me and my buddy Caesar. We're sitting here building about different grants and collaborations. So we're working together. He does immigrant issues and I do music and art issues. And we're trying to build campaigns on how we can do this virtually. The hardest part for us is learning how to advocate and get on the budgetary ask and get policy and bills changed. That's what we're really looking for right now in our region. So we're starting to learn about like redistricting, the realignment, all of these different things, but we want to know more on how can we utilize our elected officials to support arts, immigrant issues, food, insecurities, and all these other things. So that's where we're really having our biggest issue. We're young organizers. He's 40, I'm 41. So it's like we're fairly fresh, but we just are looking for wise counsel, and we thank you guys for the packets and the toolkits you're providing, because that's getting us geared up to know how to create that ask in a better way. But that's really where we're at.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you're so brilliant, as people have been saying, in terms of developing the programs and the messaging and really being just on it all the time. What do you feel has been, because I know you are reaching out to your electeds and talking to them. What I always say in terms of, policy and legislative change, what they look for is what's the problem and how can they solve the problem with policy and legislation. It's almost like the simplest thing is like problem, proposed solution. If to put it to the most basic level of what is policy and legislative development and what they look for. My question to you would be, because I know I've seen some things that you've developed and everything else, do you feel that you're not getting a response from your legislators, or you haven't done the real pitch, or where are you in terms of the development of the ask, in a sense?
I think it's more on a level of, I don't know if our pitch is worded properly or not. I've sent you some of our documents, so this is my first rodeo. So I think we need some guidance with that, but more, we've gotten the meetings and it's more of, okay, hold on, I got this going on right now, or hold on, the pandemic. So I know there's certain things that are pressing, but it's more of, they're really not voicing what the arts are bringing to the Inland Empire as much as kind of like LA's representatives are. It's more on, health issues, advocate issues. It's different issues they're pushing the line on, which are great issues. But we just want to know, how do we push the line for the arts more here and demand more for arts?
So just my 2 cents back to, and others who are thinking along these lines, and I know we're kind of getting towards the end, and I have looked at what you sent, Josiah, and I apologize, we haven't had a chance to do a one-on-one about it, but it's great. And I would say that you're actually better off with a legislator to not come with 100% baked idea. It needs to be partly their solution, right? They have to own it. They want to own it. They want to, and they also understand how to navigate through what is existing statute. Where do we put this inside of the way that the government is structured? So my 2 cents to everyone is that your passion, your industry expertise is what they don't have. And in terms of understanding what you do. So I wouldn't wait to everything to be perfect, because it never will be. And as you're saying, it's going to change. The needs are going to change because we have to respond to things. And so I would say, get in front of your electeds often and find your champion. And once you have that champion, one of the things that's really important too is to develop the relationship not only with the elected, but with their staff. Their staff are actually the ones who do a lot of the work. The elected will make the final decision if they're going to carry something. In other words, they're going to say yes, because they have limited numbers of things that they can do in a year. They're directed by their caucus, their assembly or their Senate caucus, to say you can only bring 3 bills this year, or you can only make 4 budget asks. And so they have to pick and choose within, each elected has to do that. What are they prioritizing? We have committees, not every state does, but we have essentially committees for the arts, both on the assembly side and on the Senate side. And then we have a joint committee on the arts. I would encourage everyone, and we have it somewhere on our website, and if not, we'll make sure that that we get it out to you, to look at who's on those. And one of the things you can also do, Josiah, for example, is go to your elected and say, why aren't you on the arts committee? The arts are really critical to the Inland Empire. You should be on the committee, and so on. So I think that there's a lot of ways that you can, don't worry about everything being perfect in terms of before you get to your legislator. Talk to them about what you know, and let them also help you to guide it through the process, because that's where their expertise is.
Okay, great
Jay,
job. Thank you.
You have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to lift what Nancy put in the chat, and I think Julie might be the best person to speak to this. Nancy shared that Nancy's arts organization is a very small, all-volunteer organization, and it feels scary to join in conversations with art professionals, specifically those who have like full-time real jobs in their arts organization. Could you speak more to what Nancy speaks to?
I certainly could, and others maybe you want to join in as well, but I think thank you for bringing that up, Nancy. And I think that there are many, 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 many small budget arts organizations that are almost 100% volunteer led. We've certainly seen that in our AB5 conversations, because that was one of the challenges, is that if you do a seasonal festival or one-time events, or that sort of thing, and you all volunteer led with no staff, you never had a payroll system, and all of a sudden, instead of just writing a check out of your personal checkbook to hire that person to do an event, now all of a sudden you have to put them on a payroll system. So there's a lot of you out there. Your value to your community is as effective and as important as a professionally run arts organization. And so it's I think so many are volunteer led. So I would say that, I don't know, does anyone else want to weigh in on that? Because I'm sure maybe Jenny or Patrick, do you have some thoughts on this as well?
Well, one of the things that Jenny and I do, and I think that we have the most fun with, is to help support people like you, Nancy, to work with you, to engage with you. So please look at us as resources. And this is also something that we're looking on a larger level at Arts for IE doing. Jenny, your thoughts?
Well, I know Nancy really fairly well at this point, and I would just like to say that you should I see yourself, you have so much experience that don't categorize it as, they're over there, they have a big budget, they have staff. Everything that you've done in your career, as well as with that museum, is unique to your particular place in the world. And it also needs to be heard. That story needs to be heard. Because you're not alone in the way that your museum is structured, and legislators need to know the variety of ways that people keep things going in their community, and the ways in which, I'd say 65% of our nonprofits in the region have budgets less than $50,000. And so that's a huge thing to tell about, like, look what we do with volunteers. And look what we could do if we funded staff, if we had funding sources to be able to make this a viable career. So I think that you, of all people, have should be in those meetings.
Yeah, everyone has a story to tell. Everyone that works in this field, regardless of whether they're coming into it from an administrative position or as an individual artist, there's an intrinsic value. And I think that cannot be understated. people should never feel as though they are less than, because in many cases, someone who's never actually received a paycheck for something might have more experience and a lot more to say than others.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just chime in also, Nancy, how important your voice is, especially when it comes to advocacy. Sometimes when speaking to electeds and they don't have much experience either dealing with, you know, the term you use, professional artists, your voice might be what would change their mind. It may be something that they would be able to attach more to, something that the work that you're doing compared to other people. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I know we're coming to a close here, and I just want to uplift the comment in the chat from Benita that would like opportunities to network and collaborate with artists and arts organizations who have a focus or priority population on the queer and trans youth. So maybe Benita, if you could put your email in the chat and we can see about some potential collaborations there. Julie, do you have any final thoughts, or any of the local representatives?
Just
There's always
gratitude.
about.
Yeah, gratitude for everyone for showing up today, and for doing the work that you do in the communities to really bring arts and culture to light, and to share your impact. And please, yeah, join us for Arts, Culture and Creativity Month. I promise we'll make it as easy as possible for you to engage, and we appreciate your continued commitment to advancing arts, culture, and creativity.
Julie, Matt, and Jade Alicia, thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see everybody again. We'll see you soon, April.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you so much. This was a beautiful convening. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Love to you all. Be safe.